Just a little bit about myself. I'll not spend more than 30 seconds. 12 plus years of experience in B2B sales, account management, and management consulting. Uh, Today, I am heading sales for an organization called Kalido. In the past, I have been in B2B sales roles in organizations like Mesh, which is a performance management platform, Edcast, which later was acquired by Cornerstone, which is again a learning experience platform. My career started in management consulting. So I did my MBA from XLRI and straight away jumped into management consulting with Accenture. That's where the early years of my career was shaped. So working with B2B customers, understanding their problems, understanding their pain, trying to solve for those problems was something that I was doing even before I had considered a career in B2B sales. B2B sales was something that happened to me. I got an opportunity to work with the co-founders of Darwinbox, who put their trust in me to head their north and east regions in India. And it was still an early stage startup, which later went on to attain great heights, become a unicorn and all of that. So I credit Darwinbox stint as my first foray into B2B sales and have loved it ever since and don't intend to leave it anytime soon. So that's in a nutshell about me. Now, very quickly, let's go into the agenda for today. We're going to focus on one particular aspect and probably one of the most important aspects of B2B sales process, which is negotiations. And we are, all of us, if I ask anybody, in the audience today, do you consider yourself good at negotiations? I think 90% would say no, probably no, because negotiation is a topic that we always try to avoid because it leads to confrontation. People interpret it as a zero-sum game. Somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. And it's a very tricky and sensitive matter when you're doing it, especially in the context of B2B organizational sales. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about all these 5 points that you see. How do you understand the buyer's perspective? How do you build trust and rapport? How do you manage your buyer's expectations and show the win-win outcome? It's not a zero-sum game, but you can always both win in an outcome, and we'll show how that can work as well. And of course, demonstrating value. Not in any particular order, all of these come together, but typically when you go through a B2B sales process, you will understand, hopefully, and obviously a lot of you would have many years of experience in sales. This might seem very, very 101 for them, but if there are people who are planning to come into sales as a career or have just started, those will help as well. And for the people who are seasoned sales professionals, I'm sure you will have something valuable in the session as well when we deep dive into specific areas. So if you look at a sales journey, these 5 things typically flow in this sequential order, more or less. What is B2B sales? We are all doing it. So it's in any organization selling to an organization. It could be, hardware, software, services, any kind, or technology that is sold by one company to another. Very different from B2C sales. And hence a lot of challenges come into B2B sales, because B2B sales, typically the processes are longer. You're not selling to an individual, you're selling to an organization. So you have multiple stakeholders that you need to understand, build rapport with, build trust, show value. So that's another. B2B sales processes are typically very long compared to B2C sales, which typically happens over the counter. It's a long process of building trust, understanding pain, addressing those pain points, and then finally showing value. And the other thing is B2B sales, the volume, the ticket size is very, very high. It can go from anywhere as low as $1,000 to $100,000 or even more in some large scale B2B deals. So it's always a very high stakes environment where we sales professionals typically get into. So that's B2B sales. What are the things that you typically do in B2B sales, right? From a B2B salesperson, you need to understand the service, the technology, the product that you are selling. You also need to understand what is the value proposition. What is the value that this product or service will add to the customer? You're not selling features, you're selling value. Also important to understand competitive landscape. Who are your competitors? Direct competitors, indirect competitors, you need to understand those as well. And there are many tools available in the market today for you to understand your competitive landscape. G2.com, Capterra, these are some of the things that come to my mind. as well, that you can research and find out, your competitors for your specific product or service. ICP is very important, ideal customer profile, because you don't want to sell to everybody. Just because you have a product or service doesn't mean everybody becomes your customer. So through trial and error in the early stages, and most organizations have already done this, the ICP is established. Who is the ideal customer? Who should I sell to? What kind of organization would be the best fit for my product or service? And the ICP can change over time. When you are let's say, a smaller scale firm dealing in products and services, your ICP could be different. As you grow and mature and become a more enterprise level product or service, your ICP will change. So ICP undergoes changes over a period of time. One thing in sales, we always feel that if we give discounts, we'll sell more. I would like to oppose that, and I say that you should minimize discounts, because if you have established value of your product or service, you should not have to give discounts to sell your product. The buying should be an outcome and not the goal. And obviously, building strong connections with your customers is important. Ensuring long-term success with your customers is important. And this is what differentiates B2B sales from B2C sales. Because in B2C sales, you can sell and never see that customer again. But in B2B sales, it's always an industry, a segment, a sector where you typically operate in if you're a sales professional, unless you're switching domains. So you keep meeting the same customers, you meet the same people that you've sold to in the past, whether in the same organization or in a different organization. So it's always important to build those relationships and ensuring long-term success. It's not just sell and forget about it, right? You need to maintain your reputation. And for a salesperson in B2B sales, reputation is extremely important. So with those preliminaries out of the way, I know a lot of you would have done B2B sales masterclasses on skills. These are some of the skills I jotted down, which I felt have helped me. You can tick some of the boxes, maybe you tick all the boxes and more, but just for reference, putting some of these skills out there for you to quickly read through. Typically in B2B sales, I would use this diagram to talk about the overall sales process. A lot of it is done by marketing, right? Some of the early initial heavy lifting is done by marketing. So to create an awareness of your product, for a product or service of your company in the minds of the potential customer, the prospect, a buyer is unaware, then marketing makes them aware. And then once they are aware, they start sending or showing them information around the product or service, which could potentially benefit them. That is typically the role of marketing in the buyer's journey. So this is typically a buyer's journey, which I'm calling the B2B sales process. And once marketing has done that, then marketing sort of hands over that lead to the salesperson. And marketing obviously continues to, do this on an ongoing basis. But as soon as somebody enters that funnel from an unaware to awareness to asking for information about this product or doing research about your product or service, that's when it's time for sales to come in. And when sales comes in, sales typically has these two broad buckets that it deals with. First, I have to take you from asking for information to actually start considering this product or service as a value add to your company, right? And that consideration part and the buying part, which I'll get into, once that is established, once you've got into a discussion, an evaluation, because most companies do a very stringent evaluation of the product and service or of the supplier or partner that they are planning to buy from. Once you've entered that evaluation stage, then you move into the buying phase where the customer is now ready to buy, and then you get into the negotiation process. And once that deal is done, the sale is closed, then the customer starts using your product or service, and then obviously become advocates, referrals, which is typically handled by the account management team, the key account managers, customer success managers in today's software SaaS startups as well. So that's typically the buyer's journey in a B2B sales process. The challenges that we face in negotiation, a lot of this is addressed by doing something called value-based selling. You're not doing a price-based selling or a cost-based selling, saying that, oh, this product is coming at X price, hence you should buy it. No, you need to sell value. You need to show value. So for that, obviously, research and homework is important. Once you've established your ICP, you know exactly what kind of pain points and challenges are faced by your ICP customers. And then, as I said, you're not selling features. You're not selling modules, you're selling a solution, something that solves for that problem. And in a lot of cases, right, the technology or the services that we deal with is fairly new to the buyer. Some of these have come in maybe in the last few years. So it's also about educating the buyer that what this product and service can do for them rather than pushing the product or service. So a little bit of pull rather than push. B2C, push works great. In B2B, not so much. If you start pushing in B2B, you might actually put off the customer. So it's more about pulling them in, showing them value, educating them, demonstrating what use cases your other customers have been, finding success with, and that's how you communicate value. So that's some of the things that you can do. And obviously, it's important for a B2B salesperson to drive that deal, right? If you are at the mercy of the buyer, saying that, oh, buyer says, okay, show me this, now provide me this information, now meet this person. If they are driving the process, then you're probably on a back foot. You should always take charge of the process. You say, hey, I am an expert. I do this every day, 100 times a year or more than that. Let me take you through what the process typically is. And that's how you guide the buyer on the journey so that you control the reins of the process in your hands, not letting it slip. And ROI is a very important aspect. Everybody wants to know what is the ROI, return on investment. If I'm spending X dollars, I should at least get 5X benefits from that. So that is where the communication of value or value-based selling comes in. Now, very quickly, we saw what the B2B sales process was from a buyer's view, unaware to advocate. From a salesperson's perspective, what are those 5 stages? 1, obviously identifying leads, prospecting leads, preparation, presentation, demo, evaluation. And then 4 and 5 is, I think, where our session's importance kicks in, is the deal management process, the stakeholder management, the relationship building, commercial negotiation, closing. So a lot of you would want to get into 4 and 5 immediately and say, okay, now I have learned it, now let's close the window. But for a lot of you who are new, very quickly, I will take you through the first 3 steps and then spend considerable time on 4 and 5 so that everybody gets something valuable. Right. So identifying leads, right? For any solution or service, and I'm using product market fit because my background is typically from product sales. However, applies equally to services as well, and their relationships are even more important because you are depending on your partner, the supplier, on an ongoing basis to provide resources or to provide services. In a product, you sell the product starts getting used. Yes, you have an account management team, you have a customer success, customer support team, but the product is what is working in the organization, not your people for that organization. So it's also very important from service-led organizations. So product market fit is important, and this is typically for very early stage startups. When you've understood that there is a definite need for your solution in the market, then obviously you have a product market fit, and then that helps you identify what kind of customers will buy this product. And you can do segmentation, right? So it's like defining for, let's say you want to get married, what should be the qualities in my partner, right? So what should be my ideal partner profile, right? So you can identify certain attributes like this kind of background, this kind of personality, this kind of education, these kind of hobbies, like you do for your partner, you can do the same for your ideal customer profile. And it's pretty much the same thing. B2B sales is like a marriage because it's pretty long term. Industry, you can segment by industry, you can do it by the nature of company, size of the company, by headcount, revenue. Geography could play a role. Are they fast growing? Are they mature, stable organization? Any external factors, right? Any compliances, environmental, social, political factors affecting that particular kind of companies, and hence your solution makes more sense today. And of course, whether they have a need and whether they have the budget, right? If they have need but no budget, that's not your ICP. If they have a budget but no need, they are also not your ICP. So all of these factors, or at least most of these factors, should check out to build your ICP. So you can actually do this exercise after this session to figure out who should be your ICP, right? What industry, what headcount, what size, budget, need, is there urgency? All of those you can do. And typically most sales professionals would know it as BANT. The BANT is something that every sales professional uses as a thumb rule to qualify, disqualify prospects. Sources of leads, these can come from various sources. Most organizations have a pretty strong marketing effort ongoing. So events, conferences, trade shows, websites, LinkedIn networking, referrals, direct marketing, all of those are terrific for identifying leads. Personally, LinkedIn for me has worked out very well. And even events and conferences and trade shows are a fantastic place to identify leads as well. Prospecting, I'll not spend a lot of time on. All of you do it day in and day out. Multiple channels, calls, emails, cold calls, cold walk-ins, all of that happen. Qualify, most important is learn to disqualify as well, because you cannot sell to everybody. And if you're going after everybody in B2B sales, you are spreading yourself too thin. You will not be able to provide that personalized selling experience or buying experience to your customer if you're handling more than the number of customers you can handle at one point of time. So it's very important to disqualify. BANT, as I said, is a very good way of disqualifying customers or prospects based on whether they have those 4 elements or not. And hence, disqualification is very, very important, more than qualification. Don't spend time on prospects which you know will not mature in the next 6 months. Typically, B2B sales cycles are 6 to 8 months, sometimes more. But 6 months, if those are not maturing in 6 months, move on. Don't waste your time on that, right? Objections come in at a very early stage when you reach out to somebody, cold calls, cold walk-ins, not interested, send me more information, we have somebody else, I'm not the right person. All of these are valid, right? These could be true or untrue. The buyer just might want to just get rid of you, right? We all keep getting calls on our phone and we are very, very disturbed when somebody's trying to sell us a loan, somebody's trying to sell us a credit card or whatever. So how do you deal with those rejections? So even if you get 60 seconds, right? If you get 30 seconds, ask for permission that, hey, I am so-and-so. Ask a question. Would this help your organization achieve that, right? If you're talking to the right person, that is something that is always on their mind. How do I improve this? How do I solve this? And if you ask that particular question, which is their pain point, and for that you need to do all the research and ICP stuff that you do before, if you open with that question, if that person is the relevant person, that person will say, yes, sure, this makes sense. This is a problem that I have. What do you have for that? And then you ask to go into a quick 30-second value saying, this is what we do for our customers. Would love to take some time from you, have a proper meeting. That's it. I'm not interested is probably because you did not do a great job at selling that value in those 30 or 60 seconds or in your opening email that you sent. Send me more information is again something that people say to get rid of you. Ask more questions. What information do you need? Why do you need it? Are you going to share it with somebody in your organization? Who are you going to share it with? I will accordingly share the relevant information. Otherwise, what's the point of sharing, some box standard information that's on the website anyway? So this starts qualifying and pushing back the prospect saying, oh, and you can also be upfront saying, when people say, send me more information, it's typically to get rid of me. But is that what it is? Then I can come back in 2 months. We have a vendor for that. You can also ask, okay, that's great. Are you happy with this particular vendor? Just because they have a system or a vendor doesn't mean the door is closed, right? Ask, are you happy with them? If you know your competitors well, you know that vendor has certain problems. You could ask those questions. Are you facing this problem? So you can go deeper into it. Let's say they say, no, we are completely satisfied and super happy with that vendor. Okay, great. That's fantastic to know. We would love to be in touch with you if ever you need me. That's perfectly fine, because this, I'm absolutely happy with my vendor. You would probably hear 1 out of 100 times. Otherwise, everybody has some kitch with their vendors going on, right? So you dwell on that. And if somebody says, I'm not the right person, I don't deal with what you're selling, please, could you connect me to the right person? So take that as the stepping stone to reach out to somebody else. Could you please drop a line? Could you please introduce me, right? If you're not the right person, who is the right person? Let me connect with that person. So these rejections keep coming. These are some ones that, are common in our life. But if there are others, we can deal with those as well. But typically, you have to deal with those initial objections because you're asking for somebody's time and attention, and that's very precious to them. So unless you give something back, in those 30 seconds, 60 seconds in that opening email, why would they even want to listen to you? So time and attention is extremely important currency. So try to communicate value, probe, show a problem statement and how you deal with solving it, and hopefully you will get that foot in the door to enter. LinkedIn is a great way you can convert. There are tools for that as well. You can use those in terms of the typical numbers of conversion between cold calls, cold emails, in-mails, and what kind of reply or response rate can get you your target. So you can do a back calculation. This is the target I have to hit. These are the number of customers I need. These are the opportunities for that. These are the number of emails and cold calls I need to do with XYZ conversion rates. So you can work out that as well. And it just sort of keeps you going on that. If there is a need, right, you'd start probing that, right? What is the need this person has? And this is typically in the first conversation, not the 30-second, 60-second phone call, but when you have, let's say, 15, 20, 30 minutes with the person that you're talking to, understand what their current pain point is, right? Ask them more information around that pain point, right? You know it, you know what problem they could be facing, but get more specific into it. And then what is it costing them, right? Living with this pain that they are in, what is it costing them? So there you get an idea, right? How much of cost savings you can provide, right? How much of benefit, additional revenue you can help them achieve. And that also gives you a ballpark for what kind of budget that this person would be ready to spend. If you're saving somebody 10 lakh rupees annually, right? No brainer, they would be happy to shell out 3, 4, 5 lakhs even to get that 10 lakh benefit, right? So you get an idea if you are able to ask them to quantify the pain that they're living with, right? Why is this an issue? So again, band, but in a little more depth, right? It's not just a tick box anymore. You're going into it. Why is the pain so important right now? You've been living with this pain for the last 5 years. Why does it matter now? Is your market share slipping? Is your stock price dropping? Are people leaving your organization? What is the pain right now? Are your customers unhappy with you, right? Your customers are unhappy with you. So what is changed that you are giving me this time to delve into this? So urgency is established. And then also important to build that one-on-one relationship, right? Building that trust and rapport. You open up, you are authentic, the buyer opens up, buyer tells you. How is this affecting this particular person I'm talking to? Not the organization now. I'm dealing one-to-one. How is this affecting you? You are the IT head, you are the finance head, you are the HR head, or you are the business head. How is that impacting you as a person? Is it giving you stress? Is it hampering your chances of a promotion? Is there, a little bit of disappointment in your team from your managers? How is that affecting you? And then you know what is that person's, personal motivation to solve this problem. And that person then can become a very strong ally and an advocate for you as the deal matures. So discovery is extremely important to understand where is that need and why is this need important? What is the magnitude of that need or pain that you have? All right, a discovery call, I will not go into it. You can plan. There are multiple templates I can share with Ronit and he can share with you as well. How do you go into depth of understanding that pain? And this is what I was trying to sort of cover through understanding the buyer's perspective, right? And building trust and rapport. If you're able to do that, if you're able to show that you are really invested, not in selling, but solving a problem for them, a pain that they have, that builds a lot of trust and rapport. And trust is very important in any field, right? And especially in B2B sales. Spin selling is essentially packaging what I was trying to say in a very neat way. What is the situation my customer is in right now? What is the problem they are facing? What is the impact of that problem? So when I was saying quantify the pain, why is it urgency to solve this? So that is the implication, right? You implicate the pain. Like, what is it leading to? Problem hai, I can live with the problem. But what does it mean? How is it impacting the organization? How is it impacting me? So you implicate that pain. And then why is there a need to change, right? And that gives you a benefit. So Spin Selling is a beautiful book, very easy to read, talks about this exact same concept. Understand the situation, identify the problem, go deeper into the problem and implicate the impact, and then why do you need to change. So that's something that can nudge your customer moving into the direction that you want them to take into. So stages of spin selling: investigation, demonstration, commitment. All right. when I was talking about B2B sales being different from B2C sales, and I think a lot of these things that, some of you asked questions about became very important here. The deal process is extremely complex, right? And there are multiple stakeholders you need to manage. In B2C, you're selling to one person. In B2B, you are selling to at least 6, 7, 8, 10, even more. If it's a committee, if it's, a panel which is evaluating, you're selling to so many people. So what is important is you need to first map every single decision maker slash influencer, right? Influencer in the sense that person may not be the decision maker, but can say something positive or negative about you, your product, your service, which could influence the final decision maker. So you should know who all the decision makers are. You should know who all the influencers are, right? And it's important to map every single one of them. Sometimes you may not get time. And that is why a salesperson in B2B does not deal with 100 customers, right? At one point of time, maybe they are dealing with 10, 15 maximum. Even if you're very productive, you're in one moment you're dealing with 10, 15, because 10 deals, 10 stakeholders, that's 100 stakeholders on your mind every day. So you understand, how much you can process and pay attention to. So it's important to map every single decision maker, influencer, what their roles are. And as we were talking about, getting that one-on-one perspective with them, right? Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not, sometimes they may not entertain you. They'll only come in as a group. But if you can map them one-to-one, understand their own individual perspective. Why does this person care? What is this person's role in the process? If this is successful, what does it mean for this person? Does this person get a promotion? Does this person get a raise? Does this person appear great in front of the organization, gets a CEO's medal or gets a special recognition? What drives them, right? Is it promotion? Is it recognition? What drives them? Or do they genuinely want this problem to be solved so that their team can be more productive? Whatever be that. So identify that buyer's perspective, that individual person's perspective, and then start building the rapport. Identifying their role in the org's goal, right? What is at stake for them, for the organization, in their role as well as in their personal life, personal goals, right? What would that give me? So both as the role they are holding as well as the person they are in. So both of those matter. And one way to do that is every time you meet them, right? They have articulated a pain, play it back to them, right? Because the moment you keep playing back their pain and say, do you remember you had said this to me, right? This solution or service is going to solve that problem that you had mentioned one day. Or this is what's causing you sleepless nights today, or your team's motivation is dropping because your current system doesn't work. You remember having told me that? This will solve that problem. So anytime you're talking about a feature, anytime you're talking about a module, keep playing their concerns back to them, saying, this solves for that. And obviously, you need to have your homework done, you need to have your notes, all of that in place in a very structured process. But you keep playing back their concerns to them so that they know when they are making that decision that, oh, this will solve that problem for me. So try to become a confidant. And this is extremely important in B2B sales. I've seen some people do this very, very well. They become your source of information, insider information. They will tell you, Subid, the company is also evaluating X, Y, and Z products. You should be careful. Or, we had an evaluation with XYZ. This went well, this didn't go well. So you should be able to find, not all the 10 stakeholders will be your confidant or will be your person on the inside, but somebody who trusts you enough, right? And knows that your solution will add value, A, to their organization, and or B, to them personally. They will become your confidant because they have a motive now to get you, your solution, your service into the organization. So you could find one or two people like that in every organization in the deal process. So become their confidant, let them share information with you, which you will never have access to, because all the decision making happens behind closed doors. You don't get to see that. You don't even get to know that until the outcome is determined. So that person on the inside, your advocate, your inside person, will communicate everything to you, and you will be better prepared. So that's also a very useful thing for building relationships with people, right? And again, same thing, right? If you cheat a person, that person will never become your confidant in any deal in the future, right? This organization, next organization, that person may switch, you may switch, your paths may cross, they'll never trust you again. So yeah, don't, cross somebody like that. And as I was saying earlier, right, you should guide the buying process. And this has happened to me, right? When I am depending on the customer to come back to me and say, okay, now we have this evaluation, now we have that evaluation, I have already lost it, because now they are dictating the terms, and maybe somebody else, my competitor, is driving the process. Now behind the scenes, I don't get visibility. So I need to be in the driver's seat to say that typically this is step one. We've done step one. This is step two. We will do step two next week. And then upcoming is step three and step four, which will lead to final closure. Are you aligned with this? And keep reminding that we've done step one on this date. Step two, we did on this date. Step three and step four are still pending at your end. Let's get this so that we can start implementing and start rolling out by whatever date. And okay, I have this line here, authenticity shows. So I was talking about that. It always shows. We are all smart people. We read people very well. That's what we do. If you think you can understand somebody, they can also understand you, right? So authenticity plays a role. And typically, don't do one-on-one mapping alone. Like you map with 10 people in the organization, have backup, have your junior, have your senior, have somebody from the tech team, have somebody from the customer team, customer success team. Map multiple people. So even if you don't have a great one-on-one relationship with person X, maybe your colleague, or not your colleague, maybe because you probably sales is an individual thing, but somebody in your team could have a one-on-one with that person, or maybe your manager could have a one-on-one with another person. So do multi-threading, right? Not just you against all the people, but let's say three of you, your boss, you, and your team member, mapping against those five, right? So then even if one relationship fails at some point of time, the other two can take care of that, right? So that is multi-threading. So that's very important. And one more thing about stakeholder management here is, and I sell mostly HR solutions, right? So obviously HR is my primary buyer. HR head is my primary buyer. But sometimes, depending on the context, the finance head becomes a part of the process, because finance typically controls the budget to an extent. So HR head, finance head. It's an HR solution. It's a technology solution. So the IT head now becomes involved, and along with the entire IT team, security and compliance team become involved. So IT team becomes part of the process. Already three heads. Business may want to see what value you're adding. At some point of time, the head of business, the CEO, might want to know what value you're bringing. So sometimes the chief business officer or operations head may become a part of that stakeholder set. Finally, when you go into the closing the deal, most large organizations have procurement. So you have to deal with that as well. So apart from all the mapping that you've done only with your functional team, you need to deal with HR head, IT head, finance head, business head, and procurement head, right? So all of these stakeholders have a role to play, different roles. Finance will see, oh, cost benefit, fine. IT will see security, compliance, privacy, tick, 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 different ask. Business will see how quickly can I get value out of this. Procurement will see how much can I minimize this vendor's cost compared to the other vendors, because that's my KPI, right? How much have I got a reduction in their initial quote to the final quote? So have those things at the back of your mind anytime you're mapping a stakeholder, because all of them have a role to play, and your deal can fall through at any place if you're not keeping that in mind. So we've lost deals due to finance head not approving, business head not approving, IT head not giving approval, and rarely with procurement. But if you're not able to show value early on, then you can't defend your price, and the procurement keeps on asking for a higher and higher discount, and at some point of time you say, no, this is a walkaway price, we can't go any further. So all of those things need to be kept in mind. This is something that I found very useful and this is a little complicated thing. I'm not a big fan of it, but just to keep as a ready reference is something called MEDPIC. This I was made aware of this methodology or framework in a past organization, which has stuck with me. MEDPIC is essentially an acronym for metrics, economic buyer, decision criteria, process, paper, contract, pain point, champion, competition, right? MEDPIC. You need to have, for each customer that you're talking to, all these things either noted down or in your mind. What is the metrics that you're going to influence, right? I sell an HR solution. Is it going to improve attrition rate? It is going to improve recruitment time. What is it improving? Is it doing cost savings? It is doing revenue increase, whatever is it doing? What are the metrics that my solution is solving for or impacting? Who is the economic buyer? Who holds the purse? Who has the budgetary authority? Identify that particular person. That's very, very important. On what grounds will your product and service be judged? Functionality, if you're a tech product, user interface, user experience, easiness of use, easy of integration, security, compliance, cost. What are the factors that will be evaluated in the checklist that they are going to use to, evaluate you and a few other products and services? So get to know what the decision criteria is. Again, your person on the inside should be great help, but typically most organizations give you a general idea what their decision criteria is. What's the process? How many people do you have to meet? How many sessions do you have to have? IT head, finance head, business head, procurement. What is the process? Know the process in advance so that you know what the timelines will be for that. And you're better prepared. And it's best to take charge of the process, saying, okay, this is your process. We are here. Now we want to do this. Now we want to do that. Now we want to do this. Now we want to meet this person. That is the next step. So you can drive and push the deal along, because sometimes deals get stuck because there is no urgency on their side. So you need to be driving that urgency. Contract paper is important. Again, legal thing. Oh, I forgot, legal also plays an important role. Another head that comes in, legal head. Again, your paper versus my paper, your contract versus my contract. Come to a middle ground depending on your power in that dynamic. Can you enforce your contract, or do you have to accept their contract or all of their terms and conditions? That's something you also should keep in mind early. Like, what are those red lines that are non-negotiable for you and non-negotiable for them? So have those things in mind, because those will come up and could derail unless you address that. Identifying pain, this obviously comes much earlier, but again, because they wanted to make it med-pick, that's why pain comes later. But identify the pain, implicate the pain, indicate the pain over and over again. Keep playing it back to them that this is the pain you're trying to solve. Remember, this is why we started talking 3 months ago, 6 months ago in the first place, right? This pain still exists. Nothing has changed. So why are we delaying on this right now? So you can always come back to that pain anytime you see the deal lose momentum. Champion, spoken about it. Who are the people who are your advocates in your absence? You may not be in the room when the decision is being made. Who is there to say no, but that particular product or that particular salesperson was right and their product solves this problem? You need somebody to speak for you in the room when the decision is being made. That's your champion. And in every deal, you should at least have one champion. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get through. And how do you build rapport with that champion? Being authentic, identifying the pain, understanding what role this person has to play in the organization versus what their personal motivations are, and building that bond for long term, right? And finally, competition. Competition is very tricky. You know who your direct competition are, which are there in the external market. You know, X product has A, B, C competitors, very easy. But there could be competitors elsewhere as well, which you don't see. Maybe there is a certain budget with department, which another department is identifying, right? You are selling a solution, but they already have something internal which could take over that, right? So the competition is anybody who wants that budget for themselves. It need not be an external competitor. It could be somebody inside as well. Maybe your solution that you're selling, the internal IT team wants to build a solution on their own. IT wants that budget. So the competition is internal now. It's not external. So anybody who has sights on that budget is your competition, and you should know who those people are. So MedPick, I have found it's a little cumbersome to manage, but if you get into you just keep an Excel with tabs and different customers, it's fairly easy, and it becomes a habit after a while. So MedPick is very important. Commercial negotiation and closing. Now, if you've done all the other things well, right? If you've understood the pain, if you build enough trust, if you've mapped the stakeholders, if you've shown the benefit that can accrue, if you've shown that value, then commercial negotiation should be the least painful part of the deal process. But it rarely is, because we don't do all of those things well. That is when at the end, it just becomes a question of price. You lessen it by XYZ, we will give it to you because we are not fully certain. But if you've been able to establish that value, show the benefit, then commercial negotiation should ideally be a no-brainer. Okay, you're giving me this benefit, this is your cost, I can clearly see the delta. I'm okay to buy, right? So the question is, when should commercials come into the discussion? I think you should have an idea about the budget from the initial stages, right? And sometimes people say, they'll ask you in the first meeting itself, what does it cost? I don't see a problem sharing that price of your product, right? But do it only after you've got some idea about the size of the pain, the size of the budget, right? Otherwise, there might be a little bit of dissonance because, they say, oh, this will help me save 5 lakh. Your product comes at 10 lakh. I'm just using very silly numbers here. But if your price of the product is more than the pain that is costing me today, I would not probably buy it. So try to understand and implicate the pain. Like maybe they think this is only costing them so much by living with this problem, but maybe there are other implications of that particular pain which they are not able to realize or quantify. So start making that number bigger in their mind. It's not 5 lakhs, it's 15 lakhs. Because the moment you lose one person in your team, you lose productivity, you lose notice period, you lose when the person comes on the training to get that person back into a productive mode. So all of those hidden impacts of the pain are sometimes missed. I just look at the number which I can see on paper, but there are multiple other numbers that could impact and increase the size of that quantum of pain. So understand and establish that, and then go into that. How to deal with procurement is something I have put in as well. And this is typically one of the most painful processes outside, I think, legal paperwork, which mostly salespeople don't have to do, but sometimes you do, depending on the organization you are in. Dealing with procurement is a pain, but they are also very smart people on that side. They have a very one-point agenda: reduce price, right? But procurement is not an expert on your product or service. They are not functional experts. So they don't know whether this product, so they don't know whether this product is benefiting my organization and by how much. That communication, that feedback should come from the functional team. Now, when you come to procurement, their only point of agenda is, I want to reduce price. Yes, you've got a good feedback from the rest of the teams, but now you have to come to my playing field and reduce the price. So what I'm going to do is, for the next few minutes, try to show you through an example that negotiation need not be a zero-sum game, right? It should be based on some principled arguments. It should not be that just because you are the procurement of a Fortune 500 company, you can steamroll and make me reduce cost by 50% or 80%. That should not happen. Or just because I am a great salesperson and you are maybe a new person in procurement, I can bulldoze and get a better price. It should be based on some principled arguments. You want to maximize the size of your price or the benefit that you bring to your organization, but it cannot be at a personality level. You can't fight people on personality, right? Somebody's aggressive, somebody's docile. You can't always depend on that. So you need to have some principle arguments, some logic in your method to this madness. So typically, before I go into procurement with a CFO has certain important things they want to check. ROI, if you've done an ROI calculation of your product, which is again return on investment, how much is the cost, what is the benefit, or how much is it lessening the pain. So if you've been able to quantify that, and there are multiple ways in which you can take assumptions, build models to say that, hey, based on what information you have, and ask them for information, right? What does it cost to do this? What does it cost to do that? What is the cost of not doing this? Get all those numbers as much as possible. Take assumptions, put it in a simple Excel sheet and show this is the cost of the pain, this is the price of the product, this is the ROI, one divided by the other, right? So that's something you can simply do to show to the CFO that you're prepared. References, case studies, all of that also help convince the CFO that this product will be a successful, hence I'll sign the check. Last thing that the negotiation with procurement is, and this is where I'll use an exercise to show it should be a more principled exercise rather than a personality trait thing. So if everybody is on the call, let's answer this question. And I've taken a very simple example. There are two players, Rohit and Virat, and there is some tension between the two. And let's assume BCCI rewards them based on the number of runs they score. So as many number of runs they score, that many crores of rupees they get paid, right? Fairly simple. I score 100 runs, I get 100 crores. Now, Rohit and Virat, when they play together, typically they score 200 runs together in a partnership. In what ratio should Rohit and Virat split this 200 crore? Assuming if Rohit bats independently, that is without Virat, he only scores 40. And when Virat bats independently without Rohit, he scores 80. So Rohit and Virat individually score 40 and 80. When they come together in a partnership, they score 200. How should Rohit and Virat negotiate this 200 crores if they play together? 4 options, A, B, C, D. Any answers? Okay, so I think I will say there is probably a right answer, but this is not the only right answer. So let me explain what I mean. And I'm just going to show the solution that I believe in. The first question is to ask yourself, what is the pie? And this is the pie that procurement and the seller is debating on, right? Pie, if you define it, and this is a concept that's not my concept, I've also borrowed it from some book that I read somewhere or something that I saw somewhere. The pie is what is the benefit minus the cost, right? So that's the net benefit. So in this context of cricket, what is the benefit of these players working together minus benefit player 1 gets individually minus player 2 gets individually. So if the total benefit they get is 200 and player 1 by himself or herself is able to do only 40 and player 2 is able to do only 80, you subtract that out of the pie. Well, you subtract that out and you're left with 80, which is the net benefit that both of these people get, right? Individually, I can do 40, individually, you can do 80. But when we work together, the net benefit that we together get is 80. And then if you go by the most equitable standards, you should split that pie, that 80 into a 50-50 ratio. So then what do I get? What does Rohit get? Rohit gets half of the pie plus what he was going to make individually. What does Virat get? He also gets half of the pie plus what he was going to make individually. So Rohit gets 40 plus 40, 80. Virat gets 40 plus 80, 120. And it's possible for them to walk away saying, why should I settle for 80? I want 100. Virat could say, I want 150, or I could ask for 160. But the thing is, if you don't work together, then Rohit gets only 40 and Virat gets only 80. So net, there is a win-win for both of them by working together and splitting the pie in an equitable manner. So taking this example, and I don't know if you agree with this logic or not, to me, it makes sense. If you're able to identify the net benefit of working together, so I and my customer work together, what is the net benefit that we both get, right? Minus what is the cost of us working alone or cost of you living with the pain. And you can use, what is the net benefit minus the pain today minus the cost of my product, and you can arrive at the pie, and then you can split the pie in the most equitable, fair way. So you can use that. And what is the downside of not following this, right? If you don't choose to work together, then you choose to live with the pain and you are only satisfied with your individual payoffs.